Good evening. The Design Review Board public meeting of February 9th, 2017 is called to order. Please refrain from talking amongst yourselves and please turn off or put on vibrate all cell phones at this time. If you need to talk, please leave the meeting room. Anyone who wishes to speak, including applicants, is asked to completely fill out one of the speaker cards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff. Anyone who wishes to be re-noticed about a project that is returned for redesign by the DRB must completely fill out one of the postcards provided at the table by the front door and submit it to staff to receive notice of subsequent hearings. Current Design Review Board agendas are available on our city's website at www.glendaleca.gov. Please note that all appeals must be filed within 15 calendar days of the Design Review Board decision date. The chairperson may reorder agenda items at his discretion. Roll call. Board Member Benlian?
Here.
Board Member Charchian?
Here.
Board Member Malikian?
Here.
And Board Member Simonian? Oh, yes, and please put on, yes, thank you. Make sure that your microphones
Here.
are on. Thank you. Oral communications, discussion is limited to items not a part of this agenda. I have no oral communication cards.
Neither do I.
Which brings us, there are no staff announcements at this time, and we have 2 items on tonight's agenda. I'd like to turn the meeting over to Chairman Malikian.
Thank you, Vilia. So, welcome, ladies and gentlemen. We have 2 cases, but unfortunately, we have to kind of we have board members that we're going to need to leave at 7 o'clock, so we're going to try to work this out and try to make everything happen and not to continue the project. So if you can bear with me, I'm going to limit the speaking time to make sure that, and I want to make sure that everyone does not repeat, just pay attention, everyone's talking, and you don't repeat the same thing over again, so in spite of time and keeping the hearing moving along. So we're going to start with Sonora project and 5th Street, Sonora, and I don't know if we're ready. Okay.
Thank you, Board Member Malikian. And this next project before you, or this first project before you, is the project located at 5th Street and Sonora Avenue. The project involves the demolition of the existing buildings located on site, including the 4-unit minimal traditional bungalow grouping that is located facing 5th Street, and there's a Spanish colonial revival facing Sonora Avenue. They're proposing to construct a new 66-unit senior affordable housing residential project, and that includes 1 manager's unit. It's designed with a 3-story building with a U-shaped building facing 5th Street and then a separate detached 2-story building facing Sonora Avenue. Both buildings will have a combined total floor area of 55,716 square feet with 48 on-grade parking spaces. And the site is approximately 1.56 acres, which equates to 67,740 square feet. And it's owned by the City of Glendale's Housing Authority. It's a combined zone of both R2250, which is multifamily, and C2 at the very rear, where essentially pretty much just parking is located on that particular location. I will briefly just highlight some bullet points in the interest of time, and I've basically covered what the scope of work is, and I just like to also highlight that the units are designed with 1 and 2 bedroom units with a bathroom and a kitchen, a common laundry facility which is located on each floor serving all the tenants, and each unit will have private open space designed as a patio on the ground floor and balconies on the 2nd and 3rd floors. And on the building facing Sonora Avenue, what's unique about that building is that it has a community room and a recreation room located on the ground floor and the units above. As I stated, it is a senior or 100% affordable with this catered to seniors, so it definitely is a type of project that would be welcome, especially in that particular area of town. Staff is recommending approval, and we hope that you look favorably also upon the project. We do have 5 conditions, which are pretty general. The applicant's been working closely with staff, so we've gotten to a point where the execution of the design is pleasant, and we hope that you feel the same. So if you don't have any questions for me at this time, I'd like to conclude my remarks, and I am available, and so is the applicant here, available for any questions.
Thank you, Milka. Do we have any questions for staff? Okay, so we'll go ahead and open the hearing. And the first one is Michael Della.
Hello, hi, my name is Michael Della. I'm with Link Housing. We are the applicant for the 5th and Sonora development. We are a California nonprofit. For the last 30 years, we have been building affordable housing. In the interest of time, we were prepared for a presentation. If you like us, we can introduce our architect RRM, to go through the presentation if you would like. If not, we're here to answer any questions. Again, this is 100% affordable housing development, 66 units for senior housing. And we're here today because we are in the process of competing for competitive tax credits for the financing of this deal.
Okay. Do we have any questions, or do we have questions for our architect? Let's have the architect come up, please.
This is Detty with RRM.
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, commissioners, board members, I should say. I'm Detlef Peickert. I'm a principal with RRM Design Group, and I'm the architect for the project. First, I want to just compliment your staff, who's has just done an excellent job of working very closely with us. We've had a number of meetings and phone conferences, et cetera, to walk through the project and the various issues that need to be addressed, et cetera. Your urban design specialist has been very helpful in kind of guiding us in terms of the kinds of exhibits that we should provide. And I do have a slideshow that I can walk you through if you like. I can kind of do it fairly quickly. It'll have a few images that I think will be helpful in terms of understanding the project.
It's your 5 minutes.
Sure. Am I going to say next?
Or you can just raise your finger. And
Okay. Next. So this is just one of the renderings that we provided to show a view of the project, looking at it from 5th Avenue, but just kind of showing one of the angles. And this shows where the driveway side of it, and we have tuck-under parking, and then you can see the 3-story building. One of the things that we had in the project from our first submission during the RFP process is the idea of stepping the building back from the street. So the portions of the building up against the frontage are 2 stories, and then it steps up to 3 stories so that you get kind of a sense of modulation of the overall massing. And then, of course, you already know the statistics. We have 66 units. But we also have a community center, a sizable community center, 3,500 square feet, that fronts on Sonora Street, and 48 parking spaces, a number of which are tuck under, and then a number of spaces towards the rear that are open parking. And as you know, there are 3 concessions that are involved that the applicant, the developer, has utilized, subject to state law, to just make the project work a little bit better than it might otherwise if we were forced not to be able to utilize those concessions. They're really relatively minor. We're talking about a setback, reduction of the setback for a small portion of the building at the 5th Street side that just allowed us to modulate the design and the massing at that elevation a little bit more. And so it really was just in aid of trying to improve the overall aesthetic design. There's a requirement for 3,100 square feet of additional open space. It's a little bit complicated. I think your staff can probably explain it better than I do. But overall, we exceed the required open space by a significant amount. And then because of the dual zoning on the site, typically there would be a wall and some additional landscaping to buffer between the residential and the commercial zone district, but that zone district or that zoning line goes right through the parking lot, and obviously it doesn't make any sense to have a wall there. So that was the other concession, simply to overcome that obstacle. I'm just going to go through these very quickly. These are the original submittals, and I've just got them here for your reference to see kind of where we came from and where we ended up. So you can go through these quite quickly. Those are renderings just showing the various views. And that's the rear. We have a kind of a big courtyard and fireplace, et cetera, and we still have those elements. So continue. So this is just a revision of the frontage design, showing where that extra 3 feet on the right-hand side. You can kind of see how that gable pushes out a little bit closer to the street, and that was just an effort to try to do some more modulation of the mass there. That's kind of the technical site plan. We'll go to the next one, and I think you'll get a better sort of sense of the project and the open space, et cetera, that's being provided. The sort of long linear courtyard in the middle is about 40 feet wide, and we've landscaped it in such a way as to provide a number of little seating areas. And in one instance, we have a little fire pit with seating around it, et cetera, and create kind of a meandering pathway there that really allows the residents to enjoy some intimate seating areas. Towards the bottom of the sheet, you'll see the overall open space. Again, we've got an outdoor fireplace like we had in our original submittal. We have some community garden space for residents to possibly grow vegetables or flowers or something like that. And then we have a terrace on the second floor and a ground level sort of covered porch area that's being shown there. And you can see the parking that's open parking towards the bottom of the sheet. And then over towards the left, you see the community center building, which has 4 units on top on the second story, but the front portion of it is a single-story building, and then it steps up to the second story. And there's also a unit on the ground level. There's a number of amenity spaces, bathrooms, laundry room, et cetera, and community spaces, and an office as well. That was one of the things that was requested in the RFP. Next. So we were able to utilize the technology that Google Earth provides to allow us to take our model and literally put it into Google Earth. So you get a sense of how the massing kind of fits into the overall texture of the neighborhood. Next slide. So we provided several views of that sort of aerial perspective. That's the community center. I think we can just move through that. It shows the various spaces. Here's another view showing how the building overall fits into the neighborhood character. This is the elevation of the project from 5th Street. And again, you can see the courtyard, but at the rear of the courtyard is a kind of bridge structure that bridges the 2 portions of the building. They have an elevator in that structure or off to the side, and a laundry room at every floor for the residents to utilize as well. And this is the view looking from the opposite direction, south elevation. Again, you can see the fireplace and the terrace and some of the other features. I think we'll skip through the rest of them.
If you can wrap your presentation.
Yeah, I think, overall, I would say, we're very excited about the project. We think that working with staff has resulted in, I think, an exemplary project. We've really, refined a lot of the elements, and I think this is a project that the neighborhood and that you and the staff will be proud of, the city will be proud of. Thank you.
Thank you. If you, we have a couple of questions.
I just have one question.
Yes.
So this is seniors housing. Is it an active senior housing, or is this restricted on the senior activity level?
Well, it's age restricted. I don't know if you want to speak.
Of course, it's a senior project.
I think we could consider this an active senior community. It is age restricted to 62 years of age and to income levels between 30 and 60% area median income.
30 to 60%?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I do have a question for you. Actually, 2 questions, and both. Are we okay? I mean, do we have any questions for the architect? Yeah.
Go ahead.
If you have, just go ahead. You guys are okay? Okay. So the community building, the detached community center,
Yes.
has any thought, I mean, well, let me ask you this. Is this community center open to public, or is it going to be privately
I
used?
think that's probably a question.
But it's going to continue as an architectural question, so.
We designed this community center to be for the residents. We are we will be able to open it at certain times for the public, and that was one of the reasons that we designed kind of the front community center and then kind of a separate multi-purpose room as well. But the intent for financing, it's, this community center is for the residents, but we are open to opening it to the community on
Okay.
certain events, functions.
Okay.
We've done that in the past.
All right. So the question that I was trying to understand was that if somebody tries to come in, or if there's any person wants to come in from public side, if they're able to come in, or if there's parking, that there any signage or anything to have to go around the building, or is there going to be somehow they're going to be able to? This is just kind of a back end of the complex.
Well, I was just going to say, overall, the site is secured. For the security of the residents, there's a security gate, et cetera, both at both street frontages. However, the community room, the community center itself, will have some doors that open out onto a kind of a patio out in the frontage setback area for activities for folks to sit out there, watch the world go by, or and just enjoy the outdoors. Those doors would typically be locked also, but obviously at certain times the public is to be allowed in, then the doors will be open and people could enter that way.
And my other question is on sheet A1.1. You're showing a fire apparatus turnaround area,
Yes.
and portion of it on facing east is actually projecting beyond the property line.
Yes.
In order for that to work, is that going to reduce the number of parking spaces for you to have?
The way we're using the city's fire department template to
Right, but
to
it's going
superimpose
outside of the property,
Right.
so I don't know.
We've
how you're
had
gonna-
discussions with the fire department to determine whether or not what we have now, with without that corner of the adjacent property, is going to be adequate for them. We've been assured that they accept the design as it is, being adequate for them to utilize that as a turnaround. That's our understanding at this point.
Thank you, and we do have one more question.
So my question is for the gentleman sitting behind you. I'm sorry, I couldn't catch the name. You indicated you've been doing this for about 30 years, your organization.
Correct.
So back to the community center, what kind of activities? Can you give us examples of activities and events that happen at these community centers? And what is the attendance level? And is it open to people outside of those residents that live at the facility?
So Link Housing, we have a Link Cares division. We're also, this is a partnership with National Corps, who actually also provides supportive services. Both of our organizations have in-house supportive services that are all tailored toward the community, whether it's a family, a senior, or a special needs community. For example, some of the services that we have, our program is for the residents of our property. And those go from, if it's a family project, we'll have after-school training. A senior
Let's
project
specifically
will
focus
have
on seniors, yeah.
correct. We'll have a community in our community center. We'll provide computer training. We've often found that educating seniors on the computers lets them be able to connect with relatives who maybe live far away. We also have health and wellness classes. Zumba is one of our main classes that is provided across our residents as well. We also go out and partner with other organizations to bring them in. So it's not just us, but we'll reach out to the community and bring in additional services, whether it's health and well-being, medical wellness. Oftentimes we'll have not just computer literacy, but financial planning, but a barrage of services that we'll provide on site.
Okay. And so these individual services, you mentioned health and wellness, are these more like seminars, or are you talking about actually having nurses or doctors on staff? I'm trying to understand the use element so we can understand if the design element fits the use. And I'm having trouble understanding what you mean by health and wellness.
Oftentimes, this is classes that we'll have that's either healthy living, healthy eating. We'll have classes that actually go out and have a community garden program of cultivating vegetables, and that's part of some of our health and wellness classes. We'll also bring. We don't have on-site medical staff, but we will often bring in a nurse and have a training or a seminar to the residents.
And then what kind of attendance do you have at these events, and is it open to people outside of the residents?
Typically, the program is not open to outside residents. We do open up our community centers to the public on special occasions. Some of our senior properties, we have a food bank system because often we found that some of our seniors struggle with, just being able to have food. So we'll bring that on site. Not just for our residents, but we've opened that up to the public to bring the community at large to be able to access some of our food bank.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
I have, one question.
Yes.
Insofar as the second floor terrace on that southwest corner of the site, have you considered maybe moving it closer to the south side where the parking lot is, so it's not overlooking right onto the adjacent property's backyard? Or what were some of the reasons that you kind of decided to put the terrace over there?
So we're talking about the terrace that we've. If you look at the landscape plan, that's referred to BBQ Area.
Right.
Is that correct?
Yeah, this one over here. I think this is it, right?
Yes,
the
that's
raised
correct.
terrace.
There's a second floor terrace there.
Yeah, and so you're right here next to the backyard, and I'm wondering, you have some of this space over here, and I'm just wondering what the mindset is of putting a second floor, kind of a common area.
Yeah, I mean it's a good question. It was really something that came out of extensive discussion with the staff. They were really interested in seeing something like that, the Housing Authority and other staff, and it seemed to us at least that. Locating the terrace there, it kind of located much more centrally to the overall larger open courtyard area where you have the fireplace on the one side. And so we imagined that there might be people who sit there, are able to sit up there and, just look out over the courtyard. Whereas if we put it on the other wing of the building, it would be, much closer to the parking. We'd have to find another location for the community gardens. So if there is a privacy issue, it's certainly something that we can explore in terms of creating, some sort of barrier or something at that end of the terrace, like a buttress wall or something like that, that could assure the privacy of those residents on that side. But I really do think that is probably the best location for it in terms of its integration with the overall open space.
Thank you. Is it Michael Fortney?
Good evening, DRB board members. Mike Fortney with the City of Glendale. I just wanted to speak on behalf of the Housing Authority. I'll let you know a little bit of the history on this site and this project. We bought this site back in 2008 with low and moderate income housing funds with the purpose of developing affordable housing here. Twice the City Council and Housing Authority entertained a park here, but in the end we did issue an RFP for affordable housing. We issued it back in October of 2015, and just so you know, there was 18 different developer teams that submitted a proposal for this site. So it took us months and months to go through, and in the end, the Housing Authority ultimately elected Link and National Court to do this. So what they proposed then, when it was selected for an exclusive negotiating grant, was 65 units, and largely what you see here, it's grown by a single unit, and with design reviews, or urban design rather's input, it's tweaked a little bit. But overall, very happy with it. And it was Tuesday this week, so the 7th, that the Housing Authority voted unanimously for the financial support of the project. So with that, and hopefully with the favorable decision here, they'll be able to apply March 1st for tax credits, and we'll get this project built. So, and then I just wanted to add on the second floor balcony. I had some input on that. Another reason why I like that location is because the one elevator that serves the building is right there also, and there's I think it was mentioned earlier. There's a laundry room on every floor of the main building. It's also right there also. So that was part of the reasoning we thought it was a good place to put that. So.
And may I ask a question?
Absolutely.
Insofar as the date's concerned with the approval this evening, does it make any kind of a difference if it's an approval with conditions or not, insofar as the overall project and the timing of going after the state funds?
Right. No, it can be approved with conditions tonight and still go forward with the March 1st tax credit round.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, appreciate it. Thank you.
Amy Lee?
I've been a resident of
I'm sorry,
Glendale.
your name for the record, please,
Oh.
and speak into the microphone. Thank you.
My name is Amy Lee. Do you need my address?
No, that's fine.
I've been a citizen or resident of Glendale for past 20-some years. And I came to Glendale because it gave me a feeling of small town feel. Now, the city has been exploding lately, and I'm not too happy about it. But as far as this project or this proposal is concerned, I understand the need for the residents, for the residential area for these senior citizens. My mother lives in one of them. However, that location, I always envisioned it being used as a park or a playground for the little children because we have so many in the neighborhood. There's a school, elementary, you probably all know, there's an elementary school block away. There's 3 other schools less than a mile away. And in my building, the children that live there has to play there with their scooters and tricycles in the parking area because the parents are too nervous about sending them outside to play. So I've always envisioned them having a safe location to play. That's one. Number 2, we already have such an impacted parking situation because there's so many multi-family residential units there. So you're including this proposal, and they're saying almost 70 units, some of them with 2 bedrooms. We're talking about how many parking spaces that's needed, and they're only putting 48. What about the guests that are going to come? Where are they going to park? That concerns me. And we already have so much traffic going through there. This is going to add additional traffic congestion to our neighborhood. Another thing that concerns me is that I just heard from architect talking about a fire pit. Who's going to safeguard the fire pit? Who's going to take care of it? Who's going to make sure that there's no accidents? Just a concern. That's it.
Thank you. Is it Ashley
Olmo?
Diomo? No.
Okay.
So applicant can rebuttal. 2 minutes.
Going through the RFP process and working with the city, I think one of the issues that popped up was this site, I believe, was intended for affordable housing, and one of the reasons going senior was because having a family project would require more parking. We're actually exceeding state parking code by 0.25 spaces for this site. AB 744 mandates 0.5 spaces, and we're actually exceeding the parking. And working with the Housing Authority, we believe that one of the reasons having seniors, we've seen it across our properties, that seniors drive less. They have less vehicles on site. In terms of kind of the fire pit and the design, what's unique about us is we do have 24-hour property management on site, as well as maintenance staff. And again, these properties are owned and operated by us for 55 years. So there's an interest in us, an interest for us to maintain these properties and have on-site management 24 hours a day.
Thank you. Public session is closed. Mr. Bentley, would you like to start?
Sure. First thing I would like to say about this project that it's, I believe it's well designed. It's a good-looking building, and we definitely need senior housing. I understand the point that the Miss mentioned, which is parking and a lot of multifamily buildings on this street, and you're right about that. But we need this kind of buildings as well. So I'm not sure if we can hold the developer kind of responsible for what the housing authority or the city decided to do with the lot. So they decided that it's going to be for senior housing, and that's what they're proposing. So we're going to talk about the design of this project. So most of the jobs I work on are multifamily, so I'm kind of familiar with this, and some of the ones we do are senior as well. And I was pleased when I was looking at the site plan, when I reviewed the site plan, to see the amount of open space and courtyards you guys are providing, because most developers don't provide this much. They try kind of like to provide the minimum the code require and squeeze and utilize every square inch to translate it back to units, and this is not done here, so I appreciate that. Other than that, I think the overall massing and design and style of the building works. It's just on the west side, I think you have that side facade. It kind of like it's one straight line, and it's that mass. If it was broken up, similar to the front or to the other side, I think it will make this building a much nicer building. I think that's the only concern I kind of have with this, and I wish also this package had more like renderings and 3D model. I know you showed us a slide, but when we review this and we kind of study it, that would help. So other than that, these are my comments.
Thank you.
I also think that it is a well-designed project. Overall, you had a very irregular site to begin with. You had kind of a T-shaped lot, which is very inefficient. And so putting in that community room off of Sonora, I think, was a really nice way to kind of utilize the irregular portion of the site, and you were able to create a transitional in height, which I think is very important. Now you have the one story, and then you go up from there. And you kind of have a separate entrance for it as well in Sonora, which is very helpful. On the east side, you have your driveway. In a way, you have an abundance of setbacks, so that's kind of nice as well as far as site planning is concerned, because you're separating yourself quite a bit from the neighbor to the east. And we have this courtyard in the middle, which is actually quite usable because you access your units from it, and at the same time you have some outdoor space, and that's pleasant as well. Looking at the details of the common area in the rear and the way the fire pits and the garden area is integrated with the community room, although it's lacking in detail, it certainly gives us an idea of the vision. And I think with everyone's input, it's going to just get dialed in to the point of getting all those details in there. But it has all the, amenities that I think we're looking for, which is areas for gardening, areas for barbecue, area for walking, etc. After you guys went into the details of the terrace, I do understand now it's kind of by the laundry room. You put your laundry in, you go outside, you spend some time outdoors, and that seems to make sense. So you have the barbecue area underneath. So you've created a cover for it, which is, I think, good use of it. If you put it on the other side, I'm noticing that's where your trash area is, and it's kind of, that would defeat the purpose. So after really re-examining it, I do think that the pros associated with that location outweigh some of the negatives that we would get if we were to relocate it. Looking at this rendering that was presented to us, I too had some issues with that west facade. I realize because of your limitations and income and whatnot, you do need to create, straight first, second, third floor stacked units for your shear wall purposes, and you're trying to avoid the wedding cake scenario, which would, of course, create a lot of articulation. But I do think you have an opportunity to press, a couple of those bays in and out and use some different material, especially around where the balconies are. Therefore, creating some more of undulation on that facade, because as you're driving down Fifth, you do see that straight shot 3-story kind of a scenario. So that I think would be a good use of time to spend some time working with staff on that. And I'm confident you could achieve that because your front facade, you were able to do it quite nicely. And so you probably not that much undulation, but just enough to break up that, long facade. Besides that, I think it's well designed, well thought out, and it's actually going to have less of an impact than a regular multifamily project because of the senior housing to the area. And of course, City Council chose a direction which was this use. And so that's what the applicant's doing. So with that, those are my comments.
Thank you. Mr. Churchill?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm just going to, for sake of brevity, join my colleagues in the comments. I didn't hear you say anything that I disagreed with, and state that I am in support of the project. I think senior housing is something that's necessary in Glendale. It's a welcome. It's going to be a welcome addition to, I think, the neighborhood. I think that some of the concerns about parking and things of this nature that have been expressed are going to be dealt with once people realize that in the senior housing environment that people don't have as many vehicles as you would expect. So, in a regular multifamily. So I think we're fine, and I think we should move forward.
Thank you, Mr. Churchill. And I as well agree, and I do support the project, and I think it's a well-designed project, and I agree with my colleague. I do emphasize the west elevation. I noticed that as well. So, having said that, can we hear the comments or conditions if there are?
The only condition that we have is that the west facade be broken up, possibly by changing some facade planes to create a sense of articulation, and also looking into changing some facade materials, particularly around the balconies, to kind of change some textures, I guess, and give it a little more life.
Do we have a motion?
I will move to approve the project with the stated conditions.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
Okay, that was a motion by Board Member Benlian and a second by Board Member Simonian. Board Member Benlian?
Yes?
Board Member Simonian?
Yes.
Board Member Charchian?
Yes.
Chairperson Malikian?
Yes.
Motion carries 4-0. Thank
Thank you. Congratulations. So I think we're going to take a 2-minute break, or do we
2-minute
want
break, please.
Yes, we'd like to take a 2-minute break.
We're ready to begin the meeting again?
Okay. Thank you, and we're back. So are we ready to start the next case?
Yes.
Please.
Chairman Maliki and board members, the next case on tonight's agenda is a case involving a new single-family residential home at 1410, that would be 1410 Kalina Drive. The proposal involves the construction of a new split-level, 2,515 square foot single-family residence with an attached two-car garage on a 10,000 square foot lot, zoned R1 single-family residential with an average current slope of 41%. The work includes demolition of the existing, or what remains of the existing, 420 square foot structure, construction of the new residence, construction also of the attached two-car garage and driveway improvements, construction of new retaining walls and block walls, and grading that includes 997 cubic yards of cut and 6.5 cubic yards of fill for a net total of 990 square feet. I apologize. I believe...
Yes, I thought you were just introducing the case.
Yes.
So with that, I'd like to just interject for a moment, if I may.
Thank you. Sorry.
And, I thought you were just... I was under the impression that you were just opening up the case.
Oh, I thought you had... I apologize. That
So, Mr. Chair, I'm going to recuse myself from this case. I was at a dinner party some time ago, and the owner was there. This case was discussed extensively, and I just don't feel comfortable being involved with it. So for those reasons, I need to recuse myself. So with that, proceed. I'm sorry for the interjection.
Sorry. Okay, thank you. You can continue.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so back to the description of the project.
Yes.
The subject site is an irregularly shaped hillside lot, contains a number of oak trees, pine trees, olive trees. The lot is narrow at the front and becomes wider at the rear. And field obviously is a hilly terrain that slopes in the southwest direction towards the rear, with the southwest corner of the lot being the tallest. As noted, the average current slope is 41%, and there are five oak trees to be removed. Now, the lot was previously developed in 1920s with a small 420 square foot structure. One of the previous owners back in 2007 tried to do some remodeling and construction on their own without building permits, tore down the majority of it, and lost the legal nonconforming rights. So since that time, the project site has been vacant. The demolition of the structure was reviewed by a historic preservation planner, and it was found not to be of significance, so the demolition would be allowed. If the project site looks familiar, it's because the remaining board members, I believe, except for board member Charchian, I believe you were there in the last meeting as well. Let me go back a little bit. Back in 2013, the Design Review Board approved the project with conditions, and the project was appealed to the City Council. The appeal was upheld, and the project was ultimately denied by the City Council back in August of 2013. The property owner came back with a new design, the new architect, or same architect, new design. It was submitted previously as a Spanish style back in 2015 in September, and there was a request made that the property owner take a look at revising the massing the scale and trying to provide a more linear one-story, preferably structure. The applicant came back, and back in the beginning of last year, in January 14th in 2016, the board reviewed a proposal, which you have directly behind you, and it's noted with the plans that are identified with the green new tags. New plans are the ones being reviewed this evening versus the previous submittal, which is identified with a pink tag showing as old plans. And again, this is in response to the Design Review Board's decision to ultimately return for redesign the project that came before you last January with a number of conditions. If the board likes, I can either go into greater detail. The staff report included both the current proposal and the previous proposal, as well as the record of decision. Staff went into great depth and detail with regards to analysis of the current proposal, with regards to site planning, mass and scale, and as well as architectural design. I can go into a brief summary of those, or I can go into directly the board's previous conditions back from January of last year.
I think we can just go back to the previous, just the conditions.
Just the conditions? Okay.
We all had a chance to review.
Yeah, we've read them. I would say we should waive reading the conditions because I've read them.
You are okay?
So
I think it was more for the public, but I'm sure public has read them and they have the conditions, and so we have it.
the conditions by staff right now, or the conditions from the last design review board and how the project has addressed that?
I was talking about the review of the previous conditions and staff's comments to those. Did you want to read those into the record?
Well, given the amount of scrutiny this case is under,
Okay.
I'm not sure if perhaps it might behoove the board just to have a little bit of summary, unless.
Let's go ahead and do that. Yeah. I'm going to make sure public has only 3 minutes and the applicant has 5 minutes. I'm going to hold that because we're going to be running out of time, and one of our board members is going to leave, and we're going to have to continue the project, so due to the timing. So
Okay.
let's go ahead.
The first condition was to lower the height of the finished floor entry, which may remain higher than the garage level to reduce the overall mass and scale. As noted in the staff report, the floor entry was reduced 18 inches, 1.5 feet, and so from the previous proposed landing. Also, the geometric canopy above that front entryway and the split face block was also removed from the current design, so it results in a lighter, less massive front entryway. The second condition was to provide a single level design or split level configuration that follows the upslope contours without creating a large differential between the lowest and the highest finished floor levels, and that to maintain the proposed footprint to the greatest degree possible. The project, and if you don't mind, I'm going to just quickly go up to the board.
Please.
It's noted here both we have the old set of plans, the new set of plans, old and new. So with that said, thank you, and I apologize if my voice is going to give out. So the previous proposal had the master bedroom, family room, kitchen room, and dining room on the lower level. They actually, I believe this is, yes, this is correct. They had straight access from the two-car garage, and there were 2 landings up to the upper floor, had 2 bedrooms, 1 bedroom over the garage, and another one that was a portion of it over the back living room. In this case, the project has been redesigned to be completely a split level. At no time are there 2 habitable residential floors above one another. The landing, as you noted here, comes in. You have the dining room, kitchen, family room, and master bedroom. The previous second floor, the previous upper floors had 2 bedrooms. One of the bedrooms has been relocated to behind the kitchen, so there's a little bit more of on that, not exactly on the same level because it actually follows the topography, but then the remaining 3rd bedroom, which is above the garage, remains. So again, this would be a bedroom over the garage. This is also a requirement because per our zoning code, the rear retaining walls can only be a maximum of 15 feet if they are shielded from the public right-of-way, which would be along Colina Drive. So if that 3rd bedroom was removed, the retaining walls would not be shielded from the public right-of-way. So they would be over height, thereby creating a non-compliant type of situation for the rear retaining walls. So the bedroom above the garage remains. At no other time in the home is there another 1 floor above the other in terms of habitable space. And you'll notice that there is stacking throughout so that there is sort of a gradation along the building footprint. The 4th item was to, The third was to revise the floor plan to allow for the relocation of the 2 upper bedrooms depicted in the proposal, which I just described for you. The fourth condition was to revise the exterior cladding palette to eliminate stucco, specifying more natural hillside appropriate materials such as siding and stone, and avoiding the heavy embellishments depicted in the previous document. So, as noted, the previous heavier stucco type geometric configurations have been completely eliminated from the current design. The block base that was noted has also been eliminated, so the stucco has been brought down, the siding has been brought down as well. Again, staff believes that the proposed palette is appropriate to the hillside, and that this condition has been addressed and is in keeping with the hillside design guidelines. Alternatively, the board may condition to further reduce and eliminate the stucco or incorporate stone or additional siding. Apologies. Number 5 was to allow the retaining walls to be visible as much as code allows in order to lower the parapet heights, thereby reducing the overall mass. To achieve this, it may be useful to incorporate multiple retaining walls or integrate impact walls into the design. I know that this was a discussion that really went on in the last design review board meeting, try to get a series of retaining walls at the rear and whatnot. With the relocation of the bedroom now behind the kitchen, the retaining walls have sort of been pushed a little bit further into the hillside slope, but because the floor levels have risen along with the topography, these retaining walls are at the maximum. They're still then shielded from the street. There was the portion where, because the retaining walls are moved further into the cut of the slope, the slope, because of the steepness of the slope here, the successive retaining walls would not be able to really fulfill the intent. Like, you would not be able to have a series of successive walls, and this was submitted. So I'm going to look to the architect to better explain that. But by removing the upper bedroom at this portion and lowering it down, they also lowered the parapet here 15 feet. And the second floor, again, this mass has been reduced because it has now been pushed back behind the structure. So it's still at a higher plane overall in terms of overall height, but the building itself remains at 24 feet overall, and it's just the massing is now pushed against the slope of the wall, which would be consistent with the hillside design guidelines of having it flow with the topography of the site. Last 6 was to revise the drawings to show gutters and downspouts are internally integrated. The roof plan shows that. 7 was to minimize the exposed block at the base of the house, allowing the chosen cladding material to extend the ground. That has been accomplished. 8 was to ensure that permeable pavers are used for the driveway, turnaround area, and outdoor patios. As indicated on the site plan, grasscrete is proposed for the driveway and the turnaround, while concrete is proposed for the outdoor patios, which will not be visible from the surrounding properties. Permeable pavers or drainage systems should be planned for these rear enclosed patio areas. And last but not least, the condition to provide tall plant materials or fencing along north interior property line to enhance privacy between adjoining properties. And it's so noted here that at this time they're proposing a Sonoma manzanita is along the interior property line. This type of manzanita is listed as a California native, is drought tolerant, and is allowed to be installed under oak trees. It grows, it says it's a mounting shrub 3 to 5 feet high. There have been, we have other documentation that shows it's a 6 foot high shrub with a significant spread, so such screening will enhance the privacy.
And I think they're doing about 20 of them, or 25
Yes,
of them.
correct. So, that was just a brief description of how the project addressed the previous board's conditions from the last design review board meeting. There are 2 conditions that staff is recommending at this point in time, but overall, based on the analysis as noted in your staff report, staff recommends approval with conditions. I'm available to answer any more questions you may have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions for staff?
I do. There was an indication, thank you, Mr. Chairman, there was an indication in the landscaping plan or overview that a tree's going to be removed. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, and is there an older tree report that didn't make
Yes.
our packet?
Yes.
Okay.
I apologize. The tree report was included in the previous one.
Yeah, I remember.
It was, and so if you'd like, I can hand that out to you. It was noted in the staff report, and I
Yeah,
apologize.
just for a complete record, if it's possible to have that, that'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll go ahead and get started with the hearing. So, Edward Hagopian. You have 5 minutes.
Good evening, board members. My name is Edward Hagopian. I'm the architect of this project. My address is 220 South Kenwood Street, Suite 210, Glendale 91205. I was planning to talk about things that already Vilya explained to you, except 2 issues that, one issue is that multiple walls, we can have multiple walls when the slope of the natural slope is not one-to-one and steeper. I have these drawings that you have already copied, but I want to give you also additional copies that multiple walls, additional multiple walls, additional wall doesn't work when the slope is one-to-one. It's not only that it doesn't work, but it adds to the amount of the grading without doing anything. The other issue that is not a part of the condition but was a part of discussions in last hearing was that how about to use the wall of the back of the rooms as a impact wall. If we do that, in fact, may I approach?
Please.
In fact, if we do that, we will take these high retaining walls on the back and push it to the front, because we have to have same height of the walls based on the building code that we have to protect the house from the slope on the rear. And this is something that we had in our previous projects many times. So if we take this and put it on the back of the rooms, we will have more visibility, more exposure of those walls to in this side. And another minor issue is that we can use grasscrete in driveway, but if we use it in this area, that is not, that's dangerous for the waters, for the walls that we have in this area. That is not good for that. Other than that, I think Vilya has covered most of the things that we were supposed to do. I cannot think of anything else. If you have any questions.
Do you have any questions for?
I have one question which I wasn't clear on. Are you maintaining the gate, the spires here? Are you maintaining these 2 spires?
No,
You're not? Okay.
You take it out.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hagopian. Andrew Iwan.
And would all the board members like a copy of the oak tree? I can make a copy, or
I just
would you
wanna
just
look
like
at it
to
really
see
quick.
it? Okay.
Good evening.
Please, if you can state your name and,
Yes. Andrew Owaida.
and your address.
My address,
Yes.
4204 Colfax Avenue,
Thank
Studio City.
Thank you.
These are
You need to speak into the mic, so if you want to put this in the front, then you can just, yeah.
These are all the designs that have been submitted. The one on the far right is the same one, it just shows a different profile. So 8 here, not to mention the ones that were not completed. They were more like samples of designs. These, some are similar, but they all have different footprints, different square footage, different layout. I started this process in 2009. 7.5 years later, we are still at the drawing board, designing a home, hoping to meet the neighbor's consent. Every single design have been 100% in compliance with all city codes and hillside ordinances. We have done all we can to address neighbors' concern. It's very clear that some neighbors don't want us to build there. They don't want anything built on their lot, each for their own self-serving needs. And for instance, Elizabeth claims that by building this house, it's going to be an intrusion on her privacy. We are 100 feet away from her property. It just came to my attention, it dawned on me that she has not one house, 2 houses on each side of her property, 5-6 feet away. Each one is 2-story and looking directly into her pool and into her. She purchased that house willingly, knowing that she had no privacy whatsoever. But now she doesn't want any other neighbors to enjoy the privacy of their own property or the rights to enjoy their own property. The neighbors act as if they are being victimized, while in reality I'm the victim. The neighbors are enjoying their private property rights, while my property rights are being violated. I have spent a fortune, over $200,000, and hundreds of hours designing homes. I've robbed my son of the opportunity to grow in a house. It robbed us also the memory of having him grow in a house. We have done nothing but comply. And we have been trying to comply with every requirement or conditions you've had. When I started this project, my son was 6 years old. He's going to be in college before I build this house. We just ask you to put an end to this. It's been an unfair process. Grant us our rights. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Deborah?
Yes.
Jessica.
My name is Deborah Jeske.
Jeske.
4204 Colfax Avenue.
Can you speak into the mic, please? Thank you.
Yes, I will. I want to hand you some photographs, and you'll see before and after how the vegetation has been cleared between the 2 properties. That's either to give a view for the neighbors to enjoy our property or to make it look a lot worse as far as privacy. Also, you'll see the interior of the Shahajanian property and how they live in their property, and it doesn't really see. So you can
Need
take
to
a look
speak
at
into the
those.
mic so we can record that, what you say, please. Thank you.
Okay, well, here we are again. It's been 7 years. So let's review some facts. The CUP dated March 4th, 2011. Those conditions are no longer considerations of this project and should not be referred to. The lot to square footage ratio provides for an over 3,000 square foot home. Just over that, it was said that we must compromise at the last meeting. The appellants want 2,000 square feet, so we are compromising, meeting the neighbors halfway at 2,515. A previous design that was approximately 2,650 square feet was approved by the DRB. At the City Council meeting December 10, 2013, City Council findings never mandated a 1-story design or a 2,000 square foot home. A DRB member asked us, and I quote, explore the possibility of a 1-story design. We have done that. In fact, we have consulted 2 experienced architects, and both concur a complete 1-story would be in violation of the city building codes regarding exposure of the retaining walls. This design fits with 5 of the 7 homes on Kalina that have rooms built over the garage. Let me point out the previous cabin was a 2-story with a room over the garage. Over the last 7 years, you've heard every objection there is: parking, traffic, inconvenience of construction, trees, keep the beauty of the woodlands, nature's corridor, preserve the neighborhood, the adobe. The house will destroy lives. It's a mansion, privacy issues, mass scale get rid of the retaining wall, and at the last meeting, the fire chief was contacted. You've heard every excitable adjective there is, delivered with passion, conviction, but behind all those words lies intent. It is clear that the intent is to keep the lot vacant. As Ella Shahajanian told city council members, we enjoy the view of that field. It makes it look like an extension of our backyard. Their words may say they are not opposed to us building, but their actions over the last 7 years scream otherwise. They have continually denied. The denial of this project violates our legal rights under the Bill of Rights, the Fifth Amendment, and also falls under the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. The city never disclosed to us that even though you present a project that's in complete compliance of Hillside Municipal Code square footage ratios, the project can be continually denied because of the neighbors. We were never told we needed their approval, that the power lies with them. They are the ones that get to design our home. They mandate the style, the height, the size, the color, whether we have windows, whether we have a front entry, where we park our cars. Our rights have been violated, and the city has allowed these people to bully and victimize us for the last 7 years. I received a phone call from one appellant that says, take your money and go somewhere else, because the majority always wins. And as you see, they've rallied the majority again. I implore you to improve this project. It would not only be criminal, but unintendable to deny us our legal right to build on this legal residential lot. It's time to put an end to this 7-year nightmare.
Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Andrew Fredericks.
Oh, I'd like to point out, though, I did not receive any letters or correspondence regarding this case.
Yes.
But I did receive one late-night telephone call from an individual who did not leave the name in opposition to the project.
Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Andrew Fredericks. I live on Hillside Drive. I think this is my third one here. There may have been 4. I understand the passion of these folks when to build a home, and I'm not in opposition to someone moving into our neighborhood. But you look at that house and you look at that picture, that's just not compatible. Wildlife corridor, ever since this has been going on, they put that fence up or that gate. The deer that used to roam up and down our streets that my kids grew up enjoying watching are gone. They've shut it down. Not to mention, if they go into this hillside with all this wall they have to build, they're going to have to cut down all the pine trees. And out of my bay window that I like to look up, I will see nothing but hillside homes now that are being blocked by those trees that will be cut down. My friend Sam here and his family, who've lived there for many years, have beautiful oak trees that are probably 70 to 80 years old with deep roots. And we know the oak tree rules. You cut a 1-inch branch, you can go to jail without permission. But they want to build these retaining walls that are cut into these roots. So what if Sam's tree dies? Who's going to pay for that? And so it goes to what I feel in this city. And if you go down to Central and Bram, where I've been going down for some doctor's appointments, it's crazy. Everywhere you look, it's just mass development, more cars, more traffic. It seems like everything gets a green light. We've been fighting this thing for years. They forced them to bring it down to 2,100 feet, I believe, and it was still denied by the city council. So now we're back up to 2,500 square feet. The thing looks like a sanitarium. I hate to say it. And it just doesn't fit into our neighborhood. Not to mention the little narrow streets and the traffic that's going to go on there. We've got lots of kids. We've got lots of families. We just want to have a quiet life. And if there's something wrong with that, forgive me. But if they want to build their home within the reasonable confines of 2,000 feet or something along those lines, that's fine. But we can't cut down all the trees over here and have everyone else's life ruined so someone can have a house that is not really appropriate for the neighborhood. You know, and it's important to me to be able to look around here and see a little bit of open space occasionally. And unfortunately, they bought a property that had a 420 square foot house on it. Now they want to build a 2,500 square foot house. They say it was a 2-story house. Well, it was 420 square feet. So it was a log cabin. So I just implore you folks, and I hope all of you have been there to look at it. These pictures do not do justice. They do not give it perspective. That looks like there's nobody living there. That looks like it's on a flat lot in a nice, quiet little neighborhood where they have a bunch of open space around them. That whole neighborhood is filled with homes. So I appreciate your time and consideration, and I hope you can do the right thing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Elizabeth Shahjan.
Just Since the time is of the essence, and
Name for the record, please.
I just want to ask if I can take up the time of the next speaker and just speak.
Which
because
is?
of the time, Sarah Shahjahanian. So this way I don't have to go back and then come back up again.
Okay.
My name is Elizabeth. Thank you. My name is Elizabeth Shahjahanian, and I live to the north of this project. A little over a year ago, at the last DRB hearing, various speakers, including myself, asked the board members for specific recommendations during their deliberation, and they were given accordingly. I said this at the last hearing, that time after time, both at the DRB level and city council hearings, it has been said by various city officials and board members that 2,500 square feet is too big of a house for this land, that a 2,000 square feet, one story, would work. Now, going back to what I was saying about what was deliberated and recommended at the last hearing, I want to emphasize what Chairman Mardian and Mr. Simonian said over and over, with the goal of eliminating any further confusion about what is being recommended and eliminating any misinterpretation of words, so that the applicant is well informed for their redesign of this project. I have passed around what I was able to transcribe. It's a partial transcription of the deliberation and recommendation of the last year's hearing, January 14, with emphasis given on the bold sections as to what was said by almost all of the members. I just want to mention a few things myself for the record. Mr. Simonian stated that the project did not have his support, that by making certain changes, the applicant can bring the square footage to 1,800 or 2,000, and that would work with no problem. Mr. Benlian stated that he was surprised that the square footage had not changed and that 2,500 square feet is just too big for the site and for usable space. Chairman Mardian stated that he was going back to what the city council members' comments were and the direction that they were going. He said it very clearly that they said the house should be one story. Play around with the footprint and walls, then the two-story issue is moot. He said that he wanted to be very specific so that there would be no room for misinterpretation. Mr. Simonian made sure that what Chairman Mardian said was to eliminate the 2 bedrooms upstairs, to which Chairman Mardian said, yes, that is what I'm saying. And then he said, I'm going back to what I said originally. Drop the building, get rid of the second floor, and be done with it. To make sure it was clear again, Mr. Simonian asked Chairman Mardian if he was talking about the 2 bedrooms upstairs, and he again said yes, totally get rid of it. And the whole point is to keep it one story, he said. Mr. Simonian, he even turns to the staff and says, look, you're asking for direction, we're giving it to you. Get rid of the 2 bedrooms upstairs, the one above the garage and the living room, lower the house from entry, and now you have a one-story home. I'm sure by now, and by reading what I've typed from the last hearing, you know the point that I'm trying to make here. Specific instructions were given, but nobody has gotten...
Sorry, she had an additional 3 minutes.
2 minutes.
I'm sorry, 2 minutes.
Specific instructions were given, but nobody has gotten rid of the second floor above the garage. In fact, this plan is so similar to the previous one, although this one is a little taller, that the story poles have not changed. The same story poles that have been up since 2015, the latter part of 2015, are still up there. I ask you again, this last time, I'm respectfully asking you to stand by all your previous directions and recommendations. And I just want to quickly say one last thing, that at the last hearing, Myrna Stanley mentioned how at the CUP level, and I know that's not involved anymore, but I just want to make a point. It was stated that the project that the scale of the project shall be no greater than 2,000 square feet. Myrna also mentioned that at the City Council hearing, Councilman Sinanian stated that the word shall, somewhere along the line, she paraphrased this, of course, turning to maybe I can or maybe I can't. After having all these hearings at this juncture, all these specific recommendations, there is no excuse to have yet another shall situation. Shall means shall. Let's get rid of the second floor totally means let's get rid of the second floor totally. Which part of this is not clear? Use existing outdoor space for those bedrooms means use existing outdoor space for those bedrooms. Lower the building means lower the building. After watching the video from the last hearing a few times, Mr. Platt's frustration, and I understand, becomes increasingly noticeable because he kept suggesting it would become a one-bedroom house. Chairman Mardian had to repeatedly state to him that it would not be a one-bedroom house by saying they can use the existing outdoor space for their other bedrooms. This new project, they've created a bigger backyard, hence the taller retaining walls that you see now. Mr. Platt, I want to ask you a question, and I know what the answer is. You may not want to answer, but I really want to ask these questions because I think the public wants to hear. In light of all the involvement that you've had in this project for all this year, and the time that you've spent, the interjections of your opinion and concerns about the project during the board members' deliberation, how many times have you seen this project from my backyard?
I'm sorry, but this is a communication with us. We're the ones who are going to be.
The answer is zero.
And so
the answer is zero. And how many times have we asked you to come, begged you to come, to see the project
Again,
from our backyard? Many times. That's
This is
what
a
the answer
presentation
is.
to us. Thank you.
In fact, after receiving the condition, a week or so after receiving the condition from the last hearing, I called Mr. Platt and I asked for an appointment because we noticed some of the conditions were not there that the design review board member had suggested, and some of them that were there were not suggested. He promised us that over there that he would come and take a look at the project from our backyard, and he never did.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is it Aryan Shah, Jenny?
Thank you, Aaron Shahjahanian, 1508 Hillside Drive. At the discretion of the chair, I'd also like to consolidate some time with the following speakers.
Setting a precedent that is not recommended.
It's at the discretion of the, according to the code.
Well, the reason that I'm going along because they have cards. So if they don't have cards, I'm not going to accept that. Do they have cards?
Yes, absolutely.
Who are
It's
they?
Ella Shahjahanian and Matt Riley.
Okay,
It's,
2 minutes.
it's not going to take
And
9
who
minutes.
else?
Sorry?
Riley?
Matt Riley, yes.
Okay,
They're
so
both
2 minutes total. So
3 of mine and 2 minutes from
5
there.
minutes, yes.
All right.
No,
Okay.
you had, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair.
I can't.
Mr. Chair, you had. So here's the thing. I had indicated that I need to leave at a certain point in time. I don't want to disrupt quorum and have everybody come back. But I believe you had indicated 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Right. So
Right.
you just.
He said 3 minutes.
3 minutes for him and 2 minutes for the rest of the people.
Oh, because he's an applicant.
He's and he's not an applicant. And
So
speakers,
how does he?
additional speakers. If he's going to take over additional speakers, they're going to only.
If I-
This is
if-
really.
But
if
they
I
come-
may, if
okay,
I,
I'm
please.
speaking.
Yes.
If they come and they speak, they will have 3 minutes. Because he's taking over other people's, I'm gonna give him 2 minutes for each of them. So we're gonna gain 2 minutes, and we just lost those 2 minutes. So please go ahead.
Thank you. Okay. There's a new balcony from the master bedroom. Staff report says that that's not a privacy concern because that balcony is less. Well, actually, staff report does not explicitly say that that balcony is less than 25 square feet. It just says that balconies, this is correct from the code, balconies less than 25 square feet cannot be used to judge privacy. That balcony, assuming Mr. Hagobian's drawings are all accurate, which I believe they are, it shows a balcony, and I like some, just this is a question, I like some clarification. It shows that it's 14 8-inches by 3 feet, in some places 4 feet, which makes a square footage of greater than 25 square feet, which does make it a privacy concern. So I just like...
Did you want me to answer that right now?
Yes, please.
And I'll find. Why don't you continue and I'll answer.
Yeah, okay, yeah, sure.
The threshold is 40 square feet.
That's
okay. Thank you.
How many square feet
Why
is it?
don't you continue on and I'll find the answer, please.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. The backyard space was enlarged, and the last board made it clear that you might have to lose some backyard space to put those bedrooms in, and they did move one bedroom, but the backyard space was enlarged. It's 15 feet wide at 716 square feet, that backyard space, at least one of the portions. one of the portions of it. That causes the retaining walls to go pretty high, and we think that the whole point of the last hearing was to bring this building down. The main rooms with the largest windows that face us that you can judge privacy from, which are the dining and the living room and the kitchen, those rooms are all at the same elevation that they were before. The whole point was to lower this building. Just because you lower the entry, the whole building is still at the same elevation. The master was brought down a little, as I noticed, but then they put that balcony, which looks right into my bedroom and all over our backyard. It's like that does nothing. No patios existed, and then suddenly they brought that patio for the master bedroom. The master bedroom already has a terrace that faces the other side, and it has it's not direct access, but it has a quick access to the backyards in the back. Why else would they bring the small patio but to exacerbate the privacy issue? That patio wasn't there in the previous design. They didn't have to put it, and they didn't have to put it looking into my bedroom and over the pool area. So I really want to hear some discussion on that. It's out of nowhere, okay? And that patio appears to be greater than 25 square feet, which does make it a privacy concern.
Let me get this. You're saying that they put this in the privacy of your bedroom?
Yes.
You're talking about 100 feet away, and you're saying that the privacy over the pool, is that what you...
Yes, well, yes, because it is, well, I don't know if it's 100, I don't know the exact distance, but I assume
That's
it's
what it was
around that distance. It's higher up. It's very high up.
Okay.
And my bedroom windows are large, so you can look right in, and it looks over the backyard. The whole point was no patios on this side. The master bedroom already has a patio and short access to the other patio. They don't need this new one on this side, which is a privacy concern if the square footage is greater than 25. Additionally, the square footage of the house itself is large. Several board members last time expressed an interest and a possible direction in lowering the square footage. The square footage was only brought down a couple of it was added by that new patio, actually. And then the height of the building, it's 20, last time it was 23 and a half, and now it's 24 feet high. 23 and a half feet we were at, and now we're at 24 feet high. So 23 and a half is less than 24, as I understand it. So the whole point was to lower the building. So it's easier to cover. The mass, bulk, all of that, we don't just hate mass and bulk. We're saying it because you bring that building lower, and it's easier to cover with some fencing, some vegetation, and cover it nicely, not just put a disgusting thing. Make a nice buffer between the two properties. And that's why we want to bring the lower. A lot of the elevations facing the north are exactly the same, and those windows are at the same elevation. You can't cover those windows. They're really high. You'd need to plant either really high trees along that whole property line, but certainly a fence would not cover it. And that's why we're suggesting the size to come down too. If the size comes down, if you make those patios a little smaller, you'll have more retaining wall space this way to bring the building down. That was the whole point. That was a very, very incredibly crystal clear direction the board wanted to see last time. The only thing that was lowered was that entry and the master bedroom on the end.
We're done.
Thank you.
Marina Stanley?
And just to let you know, the staff report mentioned that the previous master bedroom had been modified to be a sliding door leading to a small patio in the current proposal. This glass door and small patio for the master bedroom do not violate the privacy standards in Code GMC Section 30.47.040B3, since privacy is judged only by the view from the living room, den, study, family room, and balconies greater than 25 feet. So in this case, it's from a master bedroom, and it does not meet the intent.
It's from a patio.
Thank you.
It's from a patio.
I understand. So, thank you. Marina Stanley?
Good evening, Mr. Chair and board members. Myrna Stanley, Verdugo Woodlands West Homeowners Association. I can sense the frustration on everybody's part with this project that's been going on forever. My frustration is particularly that nothing's basically changed from last time. Same footprint, same configuration, 3-bedroom split level. The council in its deliberations did state several times, listen to it, single story and 2,000 square feet. I I understand Mr. Hagobian stated that or the staff report, say that he had come up with several single-story homes, but they all violated code. That's because, and only because, he's insisting on a 2,500 plus square foot home, not 2,000, not single-story. So when you deliberate, I'd like you to consider that, and I'd also like to consider how this project can be deemed compatible when it's larger than the home that it's directly impacting. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Calvin Dong?
Yes. My name is Calvin Dong. I live at 1502 Hillside Drive. My property, their proposed development faces into my property, which is north. I've had the privilege of living in the Verdugo Woodlands since 1987. I've enjoyed the beauty and the ambiance of the neighborhood, and I am not opposed to development of private property. I've seen development over the 30 years that I've lived there, but it appears to me that having this 7-year saga is partly because whatever refinements have been made to the design have not materially been significant enough for neighbors and hopefully the Design Review Board to feel that it's compatible and appropriate for our neighborhood. So I would simply ask for your support to oppose the design as it currently has been prepared, because it is just not appropriate for the neighborhood. And I just hope that you will vote in opposition of the design. Thank you.
Thank you. Is it Ed Shamlis?
Hello, my name is Ed Shamlis. I live in the property north of 1410 for 26 years, and so I'm pretty familiar with the neighborhood. I'd like to point out one thing on the history from the staff report. They failed to mention there was a hearing on 2011, and it got turned down, okay? They maybe forgot or skipped that part. I'm looking at the old plan and the new plan, and I watched the video this morning, and I took some notes, and I think Elizabeth mentioned some of those points that some of you mentioned. I'm just going to go over some of it very briefly. Simonium say, take the floor plan and have it kind of a one-story in the footprint. You may end up at 1,800 square feet home or 2,000. You may have to make some sort of a screening wall. Do what you have to do. You can take that floor plan and make it 1,800 square feet home, no problem. I don't see a problem. Banyan, you say they did go linear, and however, you said the only thing I was surprised was keeping the size. That is why making 2,500 square feet to 2,000 feet, eliminate one bedroom upstairs and something we could work. It is just too big, okay? 2,500 feet is too big. Lose 300, 400, 500 feet, and it looks better. And I'm sorry Mardian was not here anymore, but he was the chairman, and he kept repeating what the city council members say. They give them direction, but it looked like it was never followed. Also, we have a meeting after the hearing in January with the city staff, and I asked them, is there a difference between split level and one level? And he said, oh, there's no difference. And I asked him specifically, why didn't he change it to one story? And he said, oh, this is something, it's documented, we cannot change it. So, and also, he say, when there's going to be a new design coming in, he will call us, Elizabeth, so we could go over it and see whether we will be going the right direction. Nothing. And I want to talk one more thing about the story pole. It is over 6 months. They don't want to take it down because they say it's cheaper to pay a violation ticket than to take it down. So this is the kind of people we're dealing with. They rather pay than to do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you. Jack Footing.
Hello, my name's Jack Foot. I live at 1405 Greenmont Drive now, although I did live for many years at 1408 Colina Drive, and I didn't have a lot of time to look at the design. I think when I look at it, though, I really see the most significant change that I see just from looking at the design is the color. The profile of the house looks very similar, and all the same issues that have been repeatedly brought up. It's like a broken record that's been playing for like several years now. But we are committed to supporting that, because when we were in the process of selling our house and people were coming to look at it, their first question was, "What's going on up there? Look at these." They had the story poles were there, which supposedly there was going to be a different design. But I guess the reason for leaving those story poles up there is that pretty much they didn't really change the design. So I guess we have the same idea. But that was that. And then what's been repeated is that this does have an impact on our property. It does affect our property value. It does, and that evidence is now pretty much in the record that yes, people. And when we spoke to our agent and they were showing the house, that was the first question people asked. They have not changed the entrance location. That's come up throughout. That's the most public part of their house. You're walking into the front door, and in some of these deliberations, it's talked about like relocating that, and it could be put to the other side of the garage, for example. And that way, when they're getting deliveries and all those things are happening, people aren't just standing there with a view of the pool. I mean, I think that's the biggest privacy concern, but also looking into the backyard at 1408, it's, you're out there enjoying your beautiful nature, and you have people that are at the door, the Jehovah's Witnesses or whatever that are coming up there. And the size is not reduced. And to sort of like go back and say, oh, we can't do it. Well, yeah, because you have not let go of the fact that it can't be the size that you want. You can have the size you want, you can have the house, you can have some of these things, but you can't have all of them. And so if you want a bigger house, do what we did. We moved. We found a beautiful home right by the golf course in Greenmont, and we're very happy there, and it's bigger.
Raphael.
Hi, my name is Raphael Tellens. I'm the new owner of 1408 Colina Drive. I have not much to say. We just moved in like 2 months ago, and if Arian's bedroom is like 100 feet away, my bedroom is literally like 15, 20 feet away. And my only concern is if there's any possible way of building that, like so it doesn't hurt my privacy, because no matter how they do it, I have to put like 15 feet high fence in order to cover everything. My living room, my sunroom, my bedroom, everything is like 15 feet away, sir. That's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
There's Mr. Akopian.
I need more time, as they wanted more time.
Well,
respond,
you're gonna have 3 minutes, but they actually got less time because there were cards there.
Well, I will try to be fast. Mr. Simonian commented to file variance and to have a tandem parking and to have a carport. Why Mrs. Shahijanian is not talking about these issues that are illegal, and it's not design board's duty to say go and file a variance not to have a garage or to have a tandem parking or to have a subterranean or things like that. Well, Mr. Simonian is a human being. He can make a mistake. I don't want to say that I have much more experience that Mr. Simonian has, and he made some other mistakes like that previous hearings. Now,
Mr. Akopian, please.
I have to say those things because
he's
people
not
are
here,
coming
so
here.
he cannot defend himself. So I'm not going to allow that.
Well,
please, thank you.
People come here and they talk about the
I'm
backyard
sorry, he's
that
not
is too
able.
big.
I'm sorry, because of your applicant, he specifically stated that he had to recuse himself. So if there's anything that needs to be spoken about him when he's here, you may come and as a public.
Since they talked about Mr. Simonian, that's why I brought this up. Otherwise, I will not talk about that. Anyway, we have a backyard day that has to be there. You are architect, and you are experienced in during these years of being sitting there, that we have to have that backyard there because of the building code. Now they are coming and talking about making that smaller. We cannot do that. That's a code issue here. So then talking about that small landing in front of the master bedroom, anyway, as Vilya said, it's a bedroom. No, these are excuses. And coming here and having names for that architecture, I'm surprised to hear these things. What is the architecture of their house? We have worked hard to create this beauty there, and now that is what? Either it was monster or it's removing one bedroom on the back of this house. By the way, the height is not added. The height is reduced in the front. May I approach and show you?
We see it here. And
no, the high room is on the back, not in the front. So why
we're going
so much?
Mr.
So
Peickert,
much?
We're going by the dimensions that it's given here. So that's all. That's
we have to clarify that because they are talking here that we have raised the house. No, this is misinforming, and this is confusing, and this is not right. This is bad. We have to be. Everything has to be just in this room for the owner and for the neighbors. We designed house without window facing Mrs. Shahjanyan's house. She didn't want it. One day last year, she invited us to go to their house. The only comment that she has was, if you build something there, it will look into my privacy. So what should we do? We tried everything to satisfy them, but they have excuses. They call names of this architecture. They have, no, to me, these are excuses. This is not architecture.
You need to wrap this up because we have a board member that's going to leave, and we're going to have
of
to continue.
Of that 2,500 square foot house that we have compared to 4,000, 5,000 square foot houses that they have, most of it is dug into the hill. It's not visible. So what is the difference to have a house to be 2,500 or 2,200? Is that the make or break point for this house? We have worked hard for these 7 years, and you are technical. You know what we are talking about. I respect you, and I respect your decision, but let that to be just and logic and make sense with the code and with the standards of the hillside development.
Thank you.
So that things to be right. When we leave this room, not to say, the politics is killing this.
We're going to lose quorum.
We're closed.
Okay.
May I start? Thank you. So
I'm sorry, it's closed, and we only had one rebuttal, and the applicant.
So it's always very difficult when someone is going into a neighborhood and attempting to build a home, and that project or projects. In fact, Mr. Billion, if you can assist me, just flip that picture so that the crowd can see. And that you're attempting to build this project or projects, and the neighborhood just doesn't support it. It's a difficult project. And I actually live in this in the Vertigo Woodlands, and I have seen this lot, and I saw this lot years and years ago, and I thought to myself, wow, that's going to be a very difficult lot to build on, and that's what's happened here, right? And we've had multiple renditions, but I'm not focusing on those renditions. I want to focus only on what the direction that we gave last time, right? Because that's what we're here to do. And the direction that we gave last time was to significantly reduce the mass, and the project that I see in front of us has in many ways done that, and in some ways has not. But the ways that it has not reduced mass is constrained by the city's building codes, right? The fact of the matter is that the retaining wall that's here is necessary for there to be something built on this path. The height of it, I'm not going to go technical, but it has to be there. And then we have another rule that says when you're looking down this driveway here, you can't see that retaining wall, or it's going to not be conforming. So you have to put a bedroom there. So I'm sure the applicant would like to have this, they've called it a nightmare over, and have built a single-story home. And I think the neighborhood would have loved to see a single-story home. But the fact of the matter is on this lot, building a single-story home, unless you're going to live in a 426-foot cabin, is probably not practical. And so with the constraints that we have to make a decision. And from a design perspective, I think the applicant has met the majority of the guidelines that we set last for, the conditions. And as far as the additional conditions, that staff's recommending, I think that those are also appropriate. I would add a consideration to add a couple of coastal oaks or indigenous oak trees, since some were removed because of disease, according to the tree evaluation report that's been audited by the urban forestry. But other than that, I mean, where are we going to push this? Because we can't say take off that second bedroom above the garage, because then the slope is too severe and the retaining walls aren't appropriate, right? And it pains me to say this. This is the same difficulty I had with the other project that we recently did in Verdugo Woodlands. You have a legal buildable lot which has very serious constraints, and you have someone that's attempting to build on it and going through the process and not giving up on that process. At what point do we tell them that they can't build? Well, we can't do that from a design perspective. In my opinion, we can't do that from a design perspective, because from a design perspective, they're meeting the design requirements. Right? We set the design requirements, lower it. They've moved the entire second bedroom down onto the first floor. We had a huge discussion about that last time, about the additional cubic feet of grading. The cubic feet of grading hasn't changed very much. They've been able to manage that fairly well. And the third bedroom is up there, and it's a small third bedroom. It's 128 square feet. It's a 10 by 12 room, right? But it's there because it has to shield. That's where I'm coming from, and I will welcome your comments. Okay.
Spelling.
I believe we had spent a lot of time discussing this project back and forth, and I'm not going to go into the history, because I'm sure that staff and the board members really know the history and the neighbors. They've been present in all the discussions. So today I'm going to talk about the conditions that we imposed on the project last meeting. I'm not going to talk about what happened prior to that. So I'm going to go here to my notes. So yes, just to summarize the whole thing, yes, we still have a 2,500 square feet, and they're right. I said lose a few hundred square feet, it's going to help immensely, but wasn't one of the conditions. We do have a split level, so you guys keep mentioning the single story. I mean, a split level is almost a single story. The only difference is that bedroom on top of the garage, which can't go away from code. So I'm going to go down to the conditions and talk about them like a couple minutes. So condition 1, which is lowering the finished floor of the entry and reducing the mass of the entry, that happened. They met that. And I mean, I don't want to waste. I know Mr. Choshin has to leave, so probably I won't go through all of them.
Take your time, Mr. Bell.
Condition 2, providing one-story or split-level configuration, they've done. Condition 3, revise the floor plan to relocate the 2 upper bedrooms. They've done that. Condition 4, revising the exterior to basically simplify it and getting rid of some of the stone. They've done that. Condition 5, lower the parapet as much as possible, and basically they've done that. I think they lowered it about 12 inches in the area where it matters, and the result of that is now we get to see more of the wall, where in the previous design we didn't see that. Condition 6 they met. 7, they did eliminate the exposed block at the base, which was adding kind of like mass. And condition 8 has been also met. And another condition was extended by staff to add the pre-removal papers, and I agree with that one as well. Condition 9 has been met also, and they provided the landscaping to basically screen that northern elevation. So that's being said, they met the conditions. So there isn't much to say at this point.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all the efforts that the architect and the applicant has gone and the neighbors. It seems like, there's been, this thing's been going on as long as I can remember, but I guess it's been much longer for the applicant. So the purpose of our comments and conditions that we placed, we can always go down the list, in my opinion, and basically go one at a time and discuss each one of them and how they met that condition. But to me, the big picture and the intent of all these conditions was to see a substantial difference. Now, I understand that we're limited to the retaining walls. I understand that we're limited to the setbacks, these are code requirements. And these are conditions that it's beyond our control. And I understand that by rights, it's a buildable lot, and everyone has the right to build there. And I also understand that council had addressed, and as we did on the last hearing, that it was brought up many times that there was the condition of a one-story, so-called a one-story. And it was very clear, as the architect explained to us, that by eliminating the upper level, and we're going to end up exposing a very large retaining wall, which will eventually become view from the street. Therefore, it's not blocked with the building or structure. Therefore, it becomes an illegal structure, and therefore, they may have to get a variance. So it's a tough design challenge, and I understand. And it's been, as we can see, there's probably 8 or 10 different renditions on how you can actually design. To me, the overall design and the difference and the result of the changes that it was made, to me, it still remains as the mass and the scale that we were dealing with a year ago. A year of redesign and changes or opportunities that were there for it to be redesigned, in my opinion, it's been lost. So we're addressing all the conditions, and I agree, and essentially every line item was addressed, and they met every condition. So theoretically, we have to agree with that. But to me, the two different, buildings that we had a year ago and now, essentially is the same massing, same scale, and I think somebody brought up the color was changed, but there are other elements that are added, the steel canopies, that to me it's a little bit more commercial, but it's a challenging property. It's a very challenging property. I agree. I completely disagree about the privacy. I don't think there's a privacy issue. I don't think we have a two-story, but we do have a split-level building. So, and this split-level building results in these massing that we're looking at, and we did manage to eliminate some of these boxes, furred-out boxes, which was a lot more commercial than now. But in return, mass has returned, in my opinion. So it's just kind of a give and take. Something was taken away, but now we have other issues. So, and we're in a, I'll be very frank. We're in a position that I'm pretty clear. Either we approve it or deny it. We know where it's headed. But I think it's our decision that we just need to make a decision at this moment based on what's in front of us. So if you think that they're meeting the design, then let's go ahead and make the conditions or make a decision, and let's move on.
If I may, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I want to address the privacy issues since you raised them, and then address some of the massing and point out some of the areas that I think they have done a good job in, and some areas that might help holistically with that. In reference to privacy, I disagree that privacy with this lot is an issue. I have visited the neighbors. I have been in the gentleman who was referencing his bedroom. I've been into that bedroom when I was invited to tour, and I've looked up the hill, and I can see their concerns, and I think they're valid concerns for privacy. However, the code provides for certain rules as to what privacy issues we can look at, and they've addressed those privacy issues for the most part, because the consensus was that when you bring it down and get rid of the second floor from that side, that those privacy concerns would be issued. And additionally, there is no, on that second, the third number, bedroom number 3, which is over the garage, there is no windows facing the south property. It faces towards the street through a very, very long driveway. So in those areas, I think that the privacy issue is concerned. I think Mr. Hagopian can very easily work with staff if, in fact, that patio space is deemed to be somehow above the 25. I know it's off of a bedroom. That's how I would read it as well if I was to read that paragraph. But if that comes up, I'm pretty sure that that can be addressed. Legally, I would say that it doesn't apply to the bedrooms. So I don't see that from the privacy perspective. I think by getting rid of these features here, these outcroppings, they've done a good job at reducing that. I think that we've kind of created an additional problem, which is by reducing the parapet, which reduces the mass, we've created more visibility of the retaining walls. And so holistically, maybe the staff's allowed to play with that a little bit to reduce the visibility of the retaining wall. Because what would you rather look at, a parapet or a retaining wall? And then this cutout that they had in the previous design of the retaining wall, I would ask, if that can come back, if that's possible, to provide a little bit of vision of green space, so that holistically we're approving something that has a good design. But I think that, and I agree with Mr. Bellion, that we've tried our best to listen to the concerns that the neighborhood has had. We've tried our best to listen to what the applicants' concerns are, and looking at what's in front of us, I have to agree with Mr. Bellion that the majority of the concerns have been addressed, and if there's additional ones, we should raise them. But at this point, I think that they've been addressed, and what we have in front of us is a very difficult project that's not going to make several people happy. If I was living down a hill from this project, I would not be happy with this project. But I go back to the owner's right to build on this lot. That's what it comes down to, and our purview of design, I think, has been met.
And if I may add one thing. So I totally agree with Mr. Malikian when you're talking about looking at this thing holistically and looking at the big picture and not focusing on just an item by item. And that's where my thought come in, which is this portion here from here to here is a single story level. So if the applicant would have dropped this a foot or so, they're still gonna have the same concern. The way this house is sitting on the lot where it's situated in terms of site planning, and is the only area you can put this house due to the setbacks and due to all the other constraints, you're still going to have this thing hanging behind your backyard. It's not going to go away. taking a foot here, taking 2 feet here, it's still going to be there. So that's where I'm coming from. Right.
Okay, can we read the comments and conditions? You have a motion?
I do have the comments from the staff. Included proposed permeable pavers or drainage system for the rear patio areas. 2 would be to revise the landscape plan to incorporate plant material at the rear yard planters that is either taller or climbing to soften the appearance of the adjacent retaining walls. I also heard during the board's deliberation made by board member Charchian to add indigenous oak trees to replace the ones removed. Was that a consideration? And then also to ensure that the master patio, or the patio off the master bedroom complies with code or eliminate altogether.
No.
I saw that as exploring the...
I said that I'm sure that if that is deemed to be public space for privacy purposes, that it could be addressed.
Because it's off the master bedroom, it counts as master bedroom space. It's not it's not the living room area, the dining room.
That's my reading of it too.
That was our reading of code.
But if it comes up as an issue,
right,
whether it's here or down the road at some other venue, my comment for the record is that I'm sure that it could be explored by either, getting a legal opinion on the verbiage of the code, or with a reduction of square feet.
Perhaps ensure that the master patio complies with code, or consider redesigning it.
Or we could consider additional landscape screening or something else like that.
Sure, if that helps alleviate that concern.
And then I have 2 other. There's explore the possibility of returning the cutout in the retaining wall that's seen in the previous proposal.
Just a consideration.
Yeah. I'm not sure that's possible because of the way the bedroom was moved into that location. So
I'm not.
Skip that one then.
If it's not possible, it's not possible. That's a consideration.
So. And then we talked about reducing the visibility of the retaining walls through adjustment of the parapets. Again, I'm not sure exactly how that would work, because if we raise the parapets, it would add to the apparent mass.
It was more of a comment, an observation that's what we had created.
Good. So
by requirement to reduce mass, we end up with a little bit more of a visible.
So we are back to four conditions. Is that correct?
Yes. Well, consideration, staff conditions. One of the staff conditions was met already with the additional landscaping that was added. Is that right?
Oh no, the second condition that revised the landscaping. This is in regards to the rear retaining wall, that there either be taller landscaping that grows to soften it, or as shown in the elevation drawing, that there be vines that trail downwards to soften that retaining wall.
Do we have a motion?
Mr. Bellion?
I'll move to approve the project with conditions.
I'll second.
I have a motion to approve with conditions made by Board Member Benlian and seconded by Board Member Charchian. In terms of a roll call, Board Member Benlian?
Yes.
Board Member Charchian?
Yes.
And Chairman Malikian?
No.
The motion still passes 2-1 with 1 recusal. There were no minutes from...
minutes were circulated via email, but I did not see a copy here, so...
Yes, I was told that... Yes, exactly. So we are going to postpone the approval. I'm sorry, I'd like to remind everyone that we're still conducting a meeting, so if you can keep your conversations just for a moment, please, to yourselves.
Your tree report is here.
Pardon?
I'll take care of it.
Pardon?
Can we... A tree report?
Yes, the tree report. And with that said, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
The motion. Thank you.
Thanks.